Hey everybody, it's Eric from epautos.com, your libertarian car guy, and I'm coming at you early Sunday morning from behind the wheel of a 2019 Hyundai Santa Fe XL. But that's not what I wanted to talk about this morning. I'll have a review of this and the also updated regular Santa Fe, which is no longer the Sport, incidentally. It's just Santa Fe now, up on the site later today. But what I wanted to talk about was something that was prompted by a number of readers who wrote in response to the article about the EU passing mandatory speed governors on cars beginning with the 2022 model year, which will almost certainly end up coming over here, if for no other reason than because about a third of all cars manufactured are manufactured by European car manufacturers, for example, Mercedes, BMW, Audi, Volkswagen, etc. And just like GM installed daytime running lamps in all of its cars in the United States, because a lot of the cars that it built in Canada, where DRLs were required, had to have them, they decided to just go ahead and make all their cars with DRLs rather than have one batch of cars for the US market and then another batch of cars for the Canadian market. So I think a similar kind of thing is going to play out here with these speed governors. I think that minimally, cars manufactured by European manufacturers will have the tech embedded in them. It may not be active, it may not be turned on, but it will be there. And then I think there'll be tremendous pressure by the safety cult, which is really a control cult, to have the same kind of mandate enacted here. I'm very certain this is coming, unless there is pretty forceful pushback, and pretty soon. At any rate, the question that came up is, okay, well, if it becomes impossible for cars to speed any longer, what is going to happen with regard to all of the revenue that will be lost from mulcting motorists via the speed tax? Right now, a lot of states and counties and little podunk towns get a big chunk of their revenue, as they style it, which is an interesting word. It's another euphemism. It's like the euphemism where we're called customers of the DMV. At any rate, that revenue stands a good chance of falling off. So what will they do? Well, I think that they're going to find another means of mulcting us. And I think more than likely it will come from things like a mileage tax. That's already been proposed and even enacted in a number of states. I think Oregon has it already. Washington State may also have that. It's been under discussion in a number of other states, and essentially what would happen is that you're taxed by the mile. So that will be one mechanism that they'll potentially use. Another is to increase fees for things like registration, perhaps also. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. I was going to say something else and then I forgot. But I think the main worry that I've got is that potentially they're going to increase general taxes. Right now, the speed tax is a kind of relative and specific tax, meaning you can dodge it. You know, if you've got a good radar detector, like I always travel with and recommend that you do too, you can largely avoid the speed tax. But general taxes are harder to avoid. And here's the thing that really kind of creeps me out about all of this. Why wouldn't they, for example, increase taxes on your house, let's say, property tax? They could certainly do that. Another thing that they could do, and this is the most ominous thing I can think of, what if the federal government decided to impose a property tax? Why not? I know that might sound far-fetched, but reason it out. Think with me for a minute. We're already stuck paying, most of us, 2 income taxes. We pay a federal income tax, and then on top of that, we pay a state income tax. So we're double taxed right there on our income. Right now, most people have to pay a property tax on their house and their land at the state or county level. Surely Uncle will see that as a potential revenue source as well. So now they're going to impose a federal tax on property. Why not? I can't think of any logical, legal reason why they would not be able to do that. Of course, the moral argument that that's theft is an argument that almost nobody except us cranky libertarian freaks make. Nobody seems to want to talk about that, nor the idea that by taxing property specifically, as opposed to income, the system makes it impossible for any of us to ever truly own anything substantive. Think about it. You pay your house off, okay? You paid your mortgage off. You're no longer making payments to the bank, but you're still making payments, aren't you? You have to make payments to the county or the city or whoever it is that mulcts you in order to be allowed to continue to occupy the home that you paid for. So it's not really yours, is it? Imagine if you had to constantly make a payment to the government for the clothes that you wore. Were they your clothes? Not really. Anything that you're forced to constantly make payments on is something that, in effect, you're renting. You're the user of it, but you're not really the owner of it. So I personally think that property taxes are the single greatest threat to liberty that there is, because they make economic freedom impossible. They make it impossible for us to ever have to stop generating income and paying the state just to live. Income taxes potentially you can legally avoid. You can, after a while you decide you don't want to work anymore, you've accrued enough money, and if you owned your home, you could essentially opt out of the system at that point. You could just live your peaceful life in your house, on your land, not beholden to anybody. Imagine that. Imagine not being beholden to anybody, not having to write a check forever to some government bureaucracy someplace. That's what would be possible if there weren't taxes on property. So anyway, that's my dread worry, that all of the revenue that's going to be lost potentially via the speed-limited and automated cars is going to be made up for by some other obnoxious method. And potentially I see that as one of the ways that these clowns are going to do that, unless there's pushback. I really hope that there is pushback. I think it's high time America had its own yellow vest movement. It's funny, isn't it? People make fun of the French, particularly conservatives. I have a beef with my conservative brethren out there because they are constantly making fun of, for example, the surrender monkeys of France. But at least the French get out in the streets when the government gets a little bit out of hand. What do? We watch football. Who won the game? And go to Walmart and just take it. Americans seem unable to ever arouse any indignation about anything, except, of course, for the free shit army. The free shit army is out in the streets demanding their gives me dat. But people who actually are not leeches and parasites and just want to be left alone and stop having people's hands shoved in their pockets all the time, they're really quiescent. They just sort of sit around and take it, which is an interesting thing. Maybe it's the high fructose corn syrup. Maybe it's the stuff they're putting in the water. I don't know. I don't get it. Personally, I don't like it. But I'm just one guy. I don't know what I can do other than rant about it and write about it, but hopefully that gets some people thinking. At any rate, more up at epautos.com. There's a longer article about this topic, and I'll have the write-up of this Hyundai Santa Fe up as well shortly. So thanks for viewing, and we will catch up with you again soon.